Good morning, Inspire and Illuminators. It's me, Jennifer Engel, CEO and founder of Inspire and Illuminate. It's a nice, warm, but humid day here in this Illinois. I think it's Tuesday. When you're on summer vacation, days start to blend. Tuesday morning. So yesterday I talked about getting comfortable in the uncomfortable and how to move through it and why we should do that. Today, I'm going to talk about the opposite. Sometimes staying in your perfectly protected spaces that you've created for yourself to keep you in your highest state is just as important as getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. The key to me becomes finding balance between the two. We need to go out and explore new places and spaces and experiences, but kind of like come back home to roost in your perfectly protected place and space. So some people might ask me, aren't you being a hypocrite, Jen? And my answer is no. Around 2014, when I was recovering from cancer and literally just starting my Jaunts with Jen, and I've deleted a lot of them because, I don't know, just have. I want to keep my Jaunts more current and updated. Although I might start just leaving them there from now on. So there is a concept called juxtaposition that I've been talking about and exploring, and you'll hear it be brought up here and there within my Jaunts with Jen. Juxtaposition is the idea that two seemingly opposite ideas can coexist in the same place and space without actually I don't know if causing conflict is necessarily the right way to put it, but they can actually coexist in the same place and space. Now maybe sometimes they might cause conflict, but sometimes they don't. I think the children's movie Home might have kind of touched on this a little bit. Like, you can be two feelings at the same time, right? You can be angry with someone, but you can also love them, okay? Two seemingly opposite feelings can coexist in the same place and space. And there are these concepts that are kind of complex. This is like a polarized world. We have north and south, big and little. We have all these opposites in this world. We have left and right. And what I found is sometimes if you go too far left or too far right or too far up or too far down, you experience unbalance, unrest. And so a lot of times I might talk about one concept and then I might talk about a totally opposite concept, with the whole goal of any time I do that is bringing us back to balance and bringing us back to the middle. So we need to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. We need to go out and explore new places and spaces and experiences, but we also need places that are perfectly protected. So the way that I see this is I see this as like a bird's nest, right? A bird stays comfy in its nest, but then many times throughout the day it leaves and it goes and explores and it looks for what it needs. Another way that I see this, I don't know if the Buddhists see this exactly the same as I do, but the Buddhists really focus on the concept of the wheel. And I also see kind of time a little bit like a wheel. I see this concept like a wheel, that we need an axle, right? If a wheel didn't have an axle, it wouldn't work very well. The axle is what keeps the wheel spinning. It's what keeps the wheel moving. So we need to stay in the center of the axle, have that perfectly protected, balanced place and space. And then we kind of go out, and I see the spokes as those other different places and spaces and experiences. We can go out onto one of those spokes and then come back to the axle. Go out onto another spoke and come back to the axle. Sometimes we stay in the axle and we just watch the world kind of rotate around us, right? So we need to go out, we need to explore new places and spaces, but we also need to create places and spaces that are perfectly protected. The key becomes making sure that these places we call home, or any other place that you feel safe in, is actually safe and is actually where you want to be. And sometimes I have people ask me questions about various different topics. How do you know this? How do you know that? How do you know this? Now, some are more specific topics that require thought regarding that specific topic. But a lot of the questions that I get asked, and that I started asking myself, because back in the day, we used to have these communities where people were just like us, right? And then, well, at least some of us, I think the children who are growing up in today's society are experiencing a totally different world than what the older generation has experienced. In general, the older generation, before technology, and I'm a part of that, I did grow up in a world without computers, in a world without cell phones. In general, those of us who grew up without those things found that at the very beginning of our life, we were in these perfectly protected communities, these places, these spaces. And more often than not, and some of us still are, these perfectly protected places and spaces have people that are just like us, right? And we need both. We need these perfectly protected places and spaces, and we need diversity to expand our mind, to expand our heart, to expand our compassion, to expand our empathy. Okay? So we were in these perfectly protected places and spaces. And there are, just like anything in life, there are good things about being in these perfectly protected places and spaces. A lot of times, hopefully, there's a sense of protection, love, safety, community, deep connection, deep roots. But sometimes that can keep us stagnant, and so we need to go out and explore the world. But sometimes when we go out and explore the world, and at least with me, with globalization through technology, through the internet, it's like, whoa, Pandora's box was definitely opened. Not only was all information available with the internet, but now all beliefs, all content, all forms of consciousness, lower and higher, dark and light, were available. And teenagers usually want to explore maybe darker or unhealthy concepts. Not all teenagers, but many, right? Like when they become old enough, they might be curious about smoking or vaping or drinking or sex or drugs, and they start to experiment. Well, when the internet came out and things like that, we were exposed to everything. Things that were difficult to get our hands on are now available to our most youngest generation if we're not careful and don't know how to put protections around them electronically. And one of the things that I've learned is sometimes being too protected can lead to, I don't want to say necessarily dysfunction, but it can kind of almost like create this, I don't know how to navigate the world on my own without these protections in place. I don't know how to protect myself. I don't know how to create protection around me rather than have someone else do it for me. So what I'm all about is trying to teach people, how do you create these places of protection around you? And again, you're going to hear it in probably every single talk that I do. But again, that's actually how humans learn, is through repetition. And in addition, I share these questions and these think abouts because it's helped me navigate some of the uncertainty, some of the experiences and concepts that I was exposed to, and I will admit probably did experiment with, in my 20s and 30s. So we need to create these perfect places of protection around us so that when we go out and explore, we can come back home to safety and protection. Or if we are in our home and we are feeling those uncomfortable feelings, then we have a place to move through those uncomfortable spaces that is perfectly protected while we're doing our work. And then the key becomes, how do you create these perfectly protected places and spaces around you? Okay, and it's as easy and as difficult, here's the juxtaposition again, as asking and answering the 3 questions. How does this space that is supposed to be my home, that is supposed to be my safe place, that is supposed to be my nest, make me feel each moment when I'm heading toward it and when I'm in it? Does it make me feel positive, negative, or neutral? How does this place of safety, this home, make me function? Does it make me more functional or less functional? Does it give me energy or does it zap my energy when I'm actually in it? Here's another thing that's kind of challenging. Does my energy shift and change depending upon who is in the home or in my safe place? Okay, and if my energy shifts and changes depending upon who is in my home, how does it change? And specifically, who does it change with? Okay, these are challenging questions because a lot of times we like to think that our homes are these perfectly happy places And everyone posts pictures of their home where everyone is smiling and posing and having fun. But one of the things that I learned as I got older and as I made connections with people and as I talked with them, there's a lot of dysfunction in our homes behind closed doors, behind those smiling pictures, that a lot of us, and this is where people need to listen to the talks yesterday, they're afraid to get into the uncomfortable, to make their homes more perfectly protected places and spaces. They numb themselves, they run away, they become workaholics, they take the long way home, they end up spending a lot of time outside of home, so they don't have to do the work of making these places and spaces, which are supposed to be safe and protected and happy, really those places and spaces. So if that is you and you're ready to do the work, refer to my talk yesterday about how to move through the uncomfortable. Now, if your home is truly a perfect place or space, or even if it isn't, even if you have a perfect place or space that you can go to in nature, or at least one room in your home, right? Or wherever that is, then that's good. But everyone has to have at least one perfectly protected place and space that they can retreat to after they actually go and explore the world, and or, we all need a safe place and space. We all need a place and space that is perfectly protected so that we can heal, so that we can recharge. So yesterday I talked about how we need to go out and explore these, get comfortable in the uncomfortable, but we also at the very same time need a place that we can come back to roost, need a center axle so that we can be balanced. We need to explore and get comfortable in the uncomfortable and have new experiences so we can grow, but we also need perfectly protected places and spaces so that we can heal and recharge. And so now I'm going to challenge you. Where is your perfectly protected place and space? And there should be one in the physical world, but let's say people with autism, let's say even myself, I've experienced this many times. If someone does not feel perfectly protected or safe with you, you will see them withdraw into themselves, or you will see them explode and become like a barking dog at you. That's a clue that people don't feel that you are their perfectly protected place and space. So that's a reflection. Are you a perfectly protected place and space? Do you enjoy your company when you're alone? And if the answer is no to some of these, enjoying your company alone, and you can tackle these at different times. They're technically different things. So maybe we should stay focused on your physical place and space. But then once you analyze that, you can think about your own soul, place, and space. You can also think about how others feel around you, okay? So it's multiple layers, but let's just focus on the physical place and space first, okay? So again, yesterday I talked about getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. But today, I'm flipping the coin and I'm creating balance, and I'm talking about where is your perfectly protected place and space where you can go to heal and recharge. And if you have a place and space that is supposed to be home, but it doesn't feel like a place where you feel safe and protected and where you feel you can recharge, at a bare minimum, do you have one place or space within that home where you feel you can do that? And if you don't, again, I'm going to challenge you. That's what I'm here to do, challenge people. If you don't, then what I'm going to ask you, hold on just a second, there's lots of barking dogs. All right, if you don't have that, then I'm going to ask you to do the other three things that I talk about the most. Okay, so let's review. Sorry, the dogs got me a little distracted. Hashtag real life. Number one, you're asking yourself, where is my perfectly protected place and space in the physical world first? And then, do I have a perfectly protected place and space within myself? That's the second thing. And then the third thing is, do other people feel that they can be perfectly protected and safe around me? Okay? When you go into your home, which should be a perfectly protected place and space, do you feel perfectly protected there? And if so, when? Who is around? Who isn't around? These are very challenging questions that I've actually had to ask myself and deal with and face. If there are some places and spaces where you don't feel perfectly protected and safe, ask yourself, can I turn it into a perfectly protected place and space by tuning it up? Making little tweaks that I can do, or that the members in our home or wherever it is can do to make it more so. Okay? If you've tried that tune up for, 20 days, 5 to 6 weeks, pick your time, and it still doesn't feel perfectly protected or safe, then you say, okay, we need an overhaul. You need to bring in other team members. Again, maybe physical doctors, maybe some contractors, maybe it isn't the people in your home. Maybe there are some things that are broken, and if you just fix those broken things, a plumber, an electrician, a contractor, whatever, then it would be more perfect and protected. Maybe you need counselors or psychiatrists or nutritionists or physical fitness trainers, occupational therapy, right? Maybe if we have an overhaul with one of the people and or multiple people within the place and space, then it could actually be that perfectly protected place and space and match the pictures that are posted on social media. Okay? Sometimes, this is another thing people really struggle with. People need help, but they're too proud, or our society has told people you should just handle your shit yourself, which is such, excuse my language, but bullshit. There's some things, again, we want to be balanced. Yes, you want to be independent. You want to be able to do your part within your home, within your society. But at the same time, you're just one puzzle piece. You're like one cog in a much bigger wheel. And so just understand that your piece does fit into a much bigger puzzle. And so sometimes things happen that we don't expect, right? Our homes were perfect places, and then tragedy hit. At that time, then again, that's the overhaul. You need to call out for your cheerleaders, for your support group. When you call out, people will come. But you have to call out. That's what I'm realizing. And a lot of people don't like to do that. So if your home has been struck by tragedy, then your overhaul might be to swallow your pride and ask for help. Okay, people will come. Just ask. Sometimes you need to take a time out and you need to really think and analyze the situation to figure out what the specific problems are. So that might be something you need to do. And if you've tried tune-ups, if you've tried overhauls for half a year or whatever, there is no specific time. I'm just giving general times because people like that. Then maybe you need a trade-in. Maybe you've been able to pinpoint the exact things that are going wrong within your safe places and spaces. Maybe you've tried tuning it up. Maybe you've tried overhauling it and it's just not working. So either you need to trade out maybe some of the people, maybe the actual home itself or the place or space itself. You need to trade that out. It doesn't always have to be tragic. Like your perfect place and space, you just might have outgrown it. I don't know, a snake in its skin, a lobster in its shell. So sometimes you just need to move on because you've outgrown a place or space. You need to trade in. Anyway, I hope that this jaunt today has helped somebody think about not just getting outside of their comfort zone and getting comfortable in the uncomfortable, but also coming back to balance and finding your perfect place and space that makes you feel safe and that allows you to recharge. Hopefully you're able to label that and know that for yourself. And if you're not, hopefully I open your mind to get you to think about that. And as you're thinking about it, you can dive deeper and deeper if you want. The physical places and spaces, the spiritual, subconscious, whatever you want to call it, place and space within yourself, and how people feel around you and in their own places and spaces. So that first you can feel safe and recharged, and then help those around you feel safe and recharged. There's the barking dog I'm talking about, right? Some people protect their place and space by barking at you. So first, to be able to give yourself that protected place and space, give that to others around you, and then hopefully we can do that in our communities and the world. Peace and blessings.